At EllisDon, your safety is our top priority. But in order for us to send you home safely every night, you need to make safety your top priority too. One of the best ways to protect yourself from serious injury is by knowing your rights, knowing what's expected of you, knowing the rules, and acting safely at all times. Don't think an accident can happen to you? Think you've heard it all before? Think again. Accidents can and do happen to workers of all ages, regardless of experience. Yet, if you know the risks and know how to minimize them, you will protect yourself and your co-workers and help EllisDon achieve our goal of an accident-free job site. Nothing is more important to you or us. Safety is more than just common sense. You have the right to a safe workplace under Canadian law. You also have the right to know about hazards in the workplace. It is essential that you stay informed about the hazards on site. Information is available through training, the Workplace Hazardous Materials Information System, or WHMIS, Toolbox Talks. Every week, your employer is required to hold a safety meeting with you to reinforce safety practices. The meetings are usually brief but important reminders about what you need to do to avoid accidents. Daily work plans known as pre-job safety assessments, or PSAs, are required. If you do not have enough information about the hazards in your workplace, ask your supervisor or the site safety coordinator. It is your duty to participate in the safety process. Supervisors are required to organize and communicate work plans and enforce safety standards. You can help by inspecting work areas and equipment and joining project safety committees. You not only have the right to refuse to do unsafe work, if you are assigned work you think is unsafe, we expect you to refuse. This is a last resort. Under normal circumstances, the best course of action is to fix the hazard by advising your supervisor of your concern. Inspect the work area together. If necessary, a worker safety representative can help. If you're still concerned about your safety, contact the EllisDon Safety Department immediately to help find a solution. EllisDon maintains a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to safety. Discipline for violating safety rules is primarily the responsibility of your supervisor. EllisDon has no desire to discipline a subcontractor's workers. However, if your supervisor fails to act, EllisDon will step in if the violation is serious enough. The objective is always your safety and the prevention of accidents. Discipline is designed to change unacceptable behavior, not to punish you. Typically, we have a three-step process. First, you will receive a verbal warning that indicates you have been told to stop unsafe behavior. If you continue acting in an unacceptable manner, the second step is a written warning notifying you of your failure to adhere to safety standards. At this point, we expect your supervisor to take action to correct the infraction. A third violation will result in your temporary or permanent suspension from the site due to your failure to address the safety concern and your supervisor's failure to address the issue. Any suspension will involve your management team and the management of EllisDon and could jeopardize your company's ability to work on EllisDon sites. These are general guidelines. It is EllisDon's discretion to determine the appropriate discipline. For example, a verbal warning may not be sufficient as a first offense. The severity of the violation may require you to be permanently removed from the site. The following are some examples of serious infractions. Permitting someone under the age of 16 onto the site. Failing to have proof of competency. All workers are required to provide proof of training for basic fall protection and WHMIS prior to beginning work. Additional documentation may be required depending on the project. Proof of competency is to be kept close at hand while working. The law prohibits you from smoking in the workplace. Smoking is only allowed outside in designated areas. This also applies to e-cigarettes or vaping. Being under the influence at work is a serious offense. If you are impaired by drugs or alcohol while on site, you will be permanently banned from the project. Theft will not be tolerated. If something is not yours, you must get permission to borrow it from the owner. Radios or personal music devices are banned in the work zone. Unauthorized photography on site is not permitted. Do not override or disable safety devices. This is a serious safety violation that could cause an injury and result in your removal from the site. Please use the washroom facilities that are provided and keep them clean and operating properly. You may not opt out on safety. When you come on site, you are agreeing to work toward an accident-free workplace. A blatant disregard for safety will lead to your permanent removal. Remember, it should be our collective goal to have an accident-free work site. It is EllisDon's policy to maintain a professional work environment that is free from all forms of harassment, promotes and values diversity, and prohibits any conduct that disrupts or interferes with another person's work performance. Any on-site incidents that include violence, horseplay, uttering threats, or harassment will be investigated and may result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. Daily pre-job safety assessment talks with your supervisor are an extremely important and effective safety tool. Reviewing a PSA is a reminder of the hazards you will face in the workplace while doing specific tasks. Take PSAs seriously. Your life may depend on it. After completing and reviewing the PSA, you must sign off before starting work. PSAs are also a reminder that your employer must provide you with the training, methods, and the proper protective equipment to do your work safely. All workers are required to read and sign PSAs daily or whenever the task changes. PSAs will help put you in the proper mindset to think and act safely at all times. Participate in training when required. WMIS training is mandatory before being cleared to work. Your employer is required to give you a current Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS. The sheet contains important information for the safe handling and storage of the products you use and how to clean up spills. Providing the proper handling equipment is also the responsibility of your employer. If you see something that poses a hazard and you can fix it without putting yourself in danger and make it safe, do it. Otherwise, you are required by law to immediately report the hazard to your supervisor. If you aren't sure of what you're supposed to do or how to do it, ask a supervisor. If for any reason there are jobs you can't do, you need to inform your supervisor. It is your supervisor's responsibility to give you safe work assignments. Communication is key to a safe work site. It is critical that you only do work that you're qualified to do. For example, only an electrician is allowed to do electrical work. Otherwise, you are only allowed to plug and unplug power equipment and run undamaged extension cords. Report any injuries to your foreman and obtain first aid or medical treatment. You must report all injuries to EllisDon, no matter how minor you think they are. In the event of injury, contact your foreman or supervisor immediately. It is EllisDon's policy to offer its employees modified work duties to accommodate medical restrictions. If you receive medical care, advise your foreman of all appointments and have your doctor complete a Form 156 every time you are treated for a work-related injury. In the event of an injury, one or more first aid stations are located on site. Locations will be shown to you during your orientation. EllisDon office staff is trained in first aid, but your employer is also required to provide for first aid. All injuries must be reported to EllisDon management. In the event of an emergency, you must know where to go. Designated emergency gathering areas will be shown to you during orientation. In spite of our collective prevention efforts, accidents can happen. If one does, you must know what to do. Someone's life could depend on it. Before helping an injured coworker, make sure the area is safe. Look for chemicals or sources of electricity that could be creating a hazard. Do not move the injured worker. If you are not trained in first aid, call for someone who is. If you are going to the project office for help, make sure someone remains with the injured worker. Staff in the EllisDon office will need to know the exact location of the accident, what appears to have happened, the general condition of the injured worker. Is the worker conscious, bleeding, breathing? Be brief and accurate so EllisDon can effectively relay this information to emergency medical service. Finally, do not disturb the accident scene more than is absolutely necessary to care for the injured worker. An investigation will be conducted to determine how the accident happened to help prevent future accidents. Participating in morning stretch and flex programs will help prepare your body to handle the demands of the work and reduce the chance of overexertion injuries. You may be asked to join a joint health and safety or worker trades committee. Your participation is key in achieving an accident-free workplace. WTC reps typically focus on their specific trade. JHSC members try to improve safety for everyone. If you are not serving on a safety committee, learn who your representatives are and give them your full support. It's the least you can do to help the people working to improve the safety of your workplace. Safety at work actually starts at home before your shift. You are required to wear long pants or full-length overalls and a shirt with sleeves. Muscle shirts are not permitted. If you are working outside, long sleeves are recommended to reduce the risk of sunburn. You are required to properly wear a CSA-approved Class B or Class E hard hat. You are not allowed to wear anything underneath that alters the fit of the hard hat or obstructs your vision. You must wear CSA-approved footwear that has the green triangle logo. The work boots must be fully laced and be at least 6 inches high to protect your ankles. The type of gloves you should wear is determined by the work you're doing. Cut-resistant gloves are required to be worn when handling sharp objects or using a knife. The material safety data sheet will tell you which gloves to wear when handling chemicals. You are required to wear eye protection at all times on site. You can wear safety glasses for general protection from small flying particles. Before handling chemicals, consult the material safety data sheet for the appropriate protective eyewear. In some cases, you will need to wear a full face shield. You should wear hearing protection, particularly in noisy areas. Your supervisor can provide the proper protection and instructions. You are required to wear an appropriate retroreflective fluorescent garment if you are A. working with or near heavy equipment, B. directing traffic, or C. signaling vehicles backing up. If you are performing signaling duties, you must carry your proof of training with you. Depending on the work you're doing, you may be required to wear respiratory protection. You will need an N95 filter mask or better for dust hazards. If you are working with chemicals, consult the material safety data sheet for the appropriate protection. You may also need other personal protective equipment. Consult a job hazard analysis to help you select the appropriate equipment. Good safety habits begin before work, but they are essential during the workday too. Inspecting your work area before starting work is an important routine. If something isn't right, make the necessary changes and consult your supervisor. On some projects, specific floor finishes must be protected from damage during construction. In some cases, the floor protection is installed by EllisDon, and in other cases, it is the responsibility of the trades. In either event, floor protection is often subject to damage caused by the incursion of water or traffic across it. Edges can become curled, panels can be warped, or less durable coverings can be torn. If you observe any of these conditions, please advise EllisDon to ensure that resultant trip hazards can be dealt with and the floor protection is maintained. During demolition operations, every effort shall be made to identify, remove, or control hazards. This can be done by barriers, abatement, isolation, and phased demolition procedures. The daily PSA will be conducted with your supervisor to ensure that all hazards and potential hazards have been identified and workers are aware of all safety measures and procedures. Since demolition areas are often older areas, it is possible that hazardous material assessments have failed to disclose every material, such as asbestos or lead paint. If a questionable material is found during work, you should stop work and notify EllisDon through your supervisor. EllisDon can then obtain samples and have analysis performed to properly assess risk. Construction in active hospitals poses hazards to patients due to the creation of dust. Special enclosures and dust control measures will be in force at all times. It is extremely important to minimize dust, as various microbes which are normally not harmful to healthy people can travel on the dust particles into areas where they can cause serious complications for patients with compromised health. If these apply to your project, an infection control program will be described to you during your orientation session. EllisDon has a responsibility to protect the general public from adverse health and safety conditions that can occur on and around the construction site. All construction projects have the potential for public exposure. This includes ambient noise and dust. The best way to ensure public safety is to erect physical barriers, provide distance between the job site and public areas, and reschedule work to a time when there is no risk to the public. Physical barriers include fencing or hoarding, warning signs, pedestrian routes, overhead protection. No two projects are the same. Therefore, specific plans and procedures are required for each job site. The plans and procedures for this project will be explained to you during the site-specific orientation following this video. Warning signs and caution tape are important safety tools to be provided by each subcontractor to support its activities. Signs warning of a particular hazard should be used with both yellow caution tape and red danger tape to identify the dangerous area. Yellow caution tape warns of an increased risk in the area, but red danger tape indicates a serious hazard. You may only enter a red-taped area if you are authorized to work there. When you have finished your work in a taped-off area and the hazard no longer exists, you must immediately remove the caution tape under the direction of your supervisor. Keeping everything neat and tidy in your work area is an excellent safety routine. Storage areas should be well organized so you can retrieve materials easily when you need them. Do not store anything in doorways or stairwells. You need to keep work and lunch areas free of debris and garbage and properly dispose of trash every day. In fact, you are legally required to clean up after yourself every day. It is your employer's job to provide enough receptacles for garbage and debris for you to keep your area clean. Please put your trash in the proper container. Do not work in the dark. EllisDon provides temporary lighting at entry and exit points, along passageways, and in stairwells and common areas. If your area is not properly lit, ask your supervisor for better lighting. Proper hydration is important to your health. Each employer is required to provide drinkable water for its workers. As for water used in work functions, each employer must make provisions to ensure it will be available. Do not assume water is available for your project. During hot weather, EllisDon typically provides fans to move air through main passageways and to assist in drying or curing any compounds in use. Fans are also used to prevent cross-contamination between our workspace and the public space within a facility and to achieve negative air pressure in specific areas. Calculations determine the precise number of fans needed on each site to maintain negative air pressure. Fans should not be moved, unplugged, or altered. You should use the proper handling equipment whenever possible. Avoid manual handling. A variety of devices are available. Consult the Safe Work Practices Manual available in the project office. When working inside, you should limit the use of equipment powered by internal combustion engines. When possible, use electric-powered equipment or machinery equipped with a scrubber. Stationary equipment may be required to be vented outside. It is the responsibility of the subcontractors to provide proper ventilation for all equipment that produces exhaust gases. We've talked about general rules you need to follow to stay safe. But what about specific situations you may encounter on the worksite? Let's talk about how to avoid injury in some of the most hazardous parts of the construction site. Falls are a leading cause of accidents. If you will be exposed to fall hazards, it is critical that you be trained in the selection, inspection, maintenance, and use of fall protection equipment. And you must carry proof of that training. A fall arrest system must consist of a full body harness equipped with a shock-absorbing lanyard attached to an adequate anchor. A professional engineer must design your horizontal static line system. All fall protection equipment must be CSA approved and inspected prior to use. Remember, a fall could cost you your life. Always use your fall protection equipment when required. Fall protection must be used when installing or removing guarding, erecting or dismantling scaffold, working off or suspended access equipment, while in a powered elevating work platform. Anytime you are exposed to a fall of more than 2.4 meters or 8 feet, a guardrail must be installed. The installation of guardrails is typically the responsibility of the professional that created the fall point. If you remove a guardrail to do work on an unguarded edge, you must put up a temporary barrier to warn others to stay away from the area. Before leaving the area for any reason, you must promptly replace the guardrail and secure it properly. Use of bump lines as edge protection must be reviewed by the EllisDon Safety Coordinator. Airborne construction materials can pose an extreme hazard. On windy days, particularly on elevated structures, it is extremely important to keep items secured. Wind passing over and through a building can easily lift sheets such as plywood or roof decking and send them flying long distances. Use tie-downs to secure open bundles. Materials should be stored no closer than 1.8 meters from an edge. Also, frequently remove all loose debris from elevated areas or use covered containers. When working near edges, tools should be tethered to prevent them from falling. All tool attachments must be properly secured. Equipment such as tables or scaffolds should be tied to a permanent structure. At the end of the day, supervisors must inspect the area to ensure all materials are secure. Many urban areas have wind warning systems. Your PSA should note when there might be adverse wind conditions and identify precautions to be taken. Falls coupled with exposed rebar can also be a deadly mix. Rebar protection, in the form of candy caning the ends or using the proper cap, is imperative anytime rebar is an impalement hazard. Other impalement hazards, such as pencil rods, threaded rods, pipes, etc., must also be protected to prevent impalement. Unless specified, it is the responsibility of the subcontractor that installs the rebar or protruding item to ensure any exposed ends that are a hazard be properly protected. However, you have a responsibility to replace rebar caps that have fallen off or ones that have been removed during work and not replaced. Other protruding hazards such as threaded rods, pipes, and conduit may also need protection. What about hazards lurking under the ground? Before you dig, you must obtain a valid utility locate that has been reviewed with everyone involved in the excavation. Once you dig, sloping must be maintained according to soil type. Access to the excavation can be by ladder, stairs, ramp, or an earth ramp that provides secure footing. The edge of the excavation must be protected anytime there's a chance a worker or vehicle will be near the excavation, or if the slope exceeds a 1-to-1 ratio. Before you dig, core, or saw cut through a wall or floor, you must obtain a valid utility locate that has been reviewed with everyone involved in the process. X-ray or scanning services may be required and may require protective measures during the scanning process. Any worker who creates an opening greater than 4 inches is responsible to cover, secure, and identify the opening. Area protection may be required on the level below if material may fall. Covers must be sturdy, properly secured, and clearly marked with the words "Danger," "Hole," or a circle with an X in the middle. You must select the appropriate ladder for the work to be done. If a step ladder is appropriate, it must be fully opened with the side braces locked in place. You are not allowed to stand on either the top step, the second step from the top, or the pail shelf. You must lean straight ladders on an angle. As a guide, the height of the ladder to the point at which it touches the wall or structure should be about 3 or 4 times the distance of the base of the ladder from the support point. You must secure access ladders on both the top and bottom to prevent movement. Side rails must extend 3 feet above the landing. While climbing or descending, you must face the ladder and maintain 3-point contact at all times. Remember, ladders are for short duration work only. For longer periods, use a work platform. Scaffolding must be erected by a trained worker who complies with all the manufacturer's instructions. Rolling scaffolds, including baker scaffolds, are to have the wheels locked at all times when a worker is on the platform. Scaffolds are to be inspected on a daily basis by a trained worker. Some scaffolds need to be engineered. Always check legal requirements. All scaffolds need to be inspected and have the appropriate tag. When working on elevated platforms, you must carry a copy of proper lift training and certification. While in the lift, you are required to be tied off to the platform or lift anchor point at all times. And keep your feet on the floor while working and never stand on the guardrails or climb on them. Always inspect your path for hazards or obstructions and remove anything in the way. While in the lift, keep the chain, swing gate, or drop bar closed. Lifts must be inspected daily before being used. The results of the inspection must be recorded. Use of suspended work platforms or mast climbing scaffolds must be reviewed with EllisDon site management prior to use. Electrical cables on site can pose a serious hazard. Treat all cables as live. A site map shows the location of cables. It is your responsibility to know where they are on site. Every effort will be made to avoid running cables across pathways, but you need to be aware of buried cables, cables running on the ground, and those strung overhead. Electric cords also need to be protected from damage. Hidden electrical hazards may be present in walls, floors, ceiling, and electrical rooms. Procedures must be in place for commissioning, de-energizing, energizing, and lockout-tagout. All electrical lines should be identified as live or dead through verification by a qualified electrician. Compressed gas cylinders pose an explosion hazard, which is why you're not allowed to store cylinders inside a building. Cylinders used inside the building must be connected to a system or represent no more than 1 day's working supply. Subcontractors must provide their own outdoor storage facility in a location approved by EllisDon. Storage facilities and cylinders must comply with legal standards. All cylinders must be secured in an upright position. When it comes to flammable liquids, you are only allowed to store a 1-day supply inside a building. Refer to the Material Safety Data Sheet for proper storage of flammable and combustible materials. Keep liquids properly sealed in suitable containers to prevent evaporation and contamination of the workplace. Rags or cloths contaminated with flammable liquids must be disposed of in CSA-approved waste containers provided by the subcontractor. Waste containers must be properly emptied daily. If you are working with an open flame or generating sparks, you must have a fire extinguisher within reach. EllisDon provides extinguishers for base building protection. Do not relocate them without authorization. All fire extinguishers must be a minimum 4A 40 BC rating and be inspected monthly. You must remove flammable or combustible materials from all hot work areas prior to starting work. Flash screens, smoke eaters, fire blankets, and hot work permits may be required. When work is completed, you must inspect the work area to ensure no ignition source is present. Depending on the project rules, the use of explosive actuated tools may be restricted. Where they are permitted, the following applies. You are required to keep proof of training where your tools are stored. Spent or misfired loads shall be discarded as hazardous waste as per the manufacturer's specifications. Do not leave nails or cartridges on the floor where they can be run over. Keep loads and your tools locked up when not in use. The application of many interior finishes can create potential hazards. Spray finishes, such as paint or fireproofing, have the potential to create airborne hazards. Review the appropriate personal protective equipment with your supervisor. You may also be required to protect adjacent materials, isolate the area, or perform the operation during off hours to reduce the exposure of other workers. Finishes such as epoxy-based compounds can create airborne contamination even if they are not spray application. These organic compounds can create health and fire hazards. A review of the Material Safety Data Sheet with your supervisor should be part of your safety planning. Tiling operations can create dust hazards from cutting, clutter due to offcuts, and may disrupt foot traffic if being installed at floor level. Trip hazards can exist at the edge of the tile, and floor protection will likely be installed to protect the tile from damage. Worker exposure risks to potentially hazardous levels of respirable crystalline silica, have been identified by EllisDon for workers performing select work activities involving disturbance or removal of cementitious products and other building materials on EllisDon projects. These silica exposure risks, if not properly addressed and managed, may lead to adverse acute and/or chronic health effects and occupational illness or disease. EllisDon is proactively committed to providing safe work conditions for all workers who may be potentially exposed to harmful levels of silica, and therefore has developed a silica exposure control plan to ensure the ongoing safety of EllisDon personnel, subcontractor workers, and owner occupants and tenants during on-site work activities. All personnel are ultimately responsible for their own health and safety and are expected to fully comply with prevailing provincial legislative requirements, applicable regulations, company and industry accepted standards and practices. Workers are also responsible to promptly report all unsafe acts or conditions and incidents relating to silica work activities to their supervisor or an EllisDon supervisor or safety coordinator. Awareness, prevention, and risk reduction are actively promoted and encouraged by EllisDon and its management. All workers are accountable to themselves and each other and share a responsibility to protect themselves and each other from known silica-related exposure hazards and risks by following the policy, requirements, and protocols found in EllisDon's or their own employer's silica exposure control plans. EllisDon's proprietary environmental management system, EMS, that was launched in 2013 is a compilation of policies, procedures, and best management practices for use company-wide. This living document raises the bar for everyone, including all subcontractors working with EllisDon, by increasing environmental stewardship and accountability in all areas of the environment and sustainability. EllisDon is committed to proper management of construction waste, erosion and sedimentation controls, excess soils, and the prevention of environmental releases on all our projects.
Mobile cranes, boom trucks, concrete pumps, etc. can be an extreme hazard if proper safety rules are not followed. You must secure all loads to prevent loose items from becoming detached. It is the responsibility of the contractor to clear any area where a load will pass over. It is a serious safety violation to fail to clear the area or fail to leave an area when instructed. While a hoisting device is in use, the operator and workers directing the load are only allowed to communicate with each other. No outside calls of any kind. When hoisting devices are in use, loading and laydown areas must be enclosed with red tape and signs indicating danger due to overhead hazard. Equipment operators must have their qualifications in their possession at all times. They also must perform daily logbook checks. Landing platforms must be erected according to the engineer's drawing. The load capacity must be clearly labeled. Before you use a landing platform, make sure your load does not exceed the weight capacity. Make sure workers are on hand to receive the load. Everyone on the platform must wear fall protection equipment when the outside gate is open. After your load is on the platform, you should move material away from the loading area as quickly as possible to reduce congestion. Make sure safety gates and chains are in place when leaving the area. All mobile equipment used on site must be equipped with a backup alarm. Equipment without an alarm must use a signaler until an alarm can be installed. A signaler must direct all trucks operating in reverse. The company receiving the load is responsible for providing the signaler. Any person operating mobile equipment must have proof of training. All mobile equipment needs to be inspected daily. The use of cell phones or handheld devices is not permitted while operating vehicles or equipment. The general use of cell phones is only for use by supervisors on EllisDon projects. This will be reviewed during the site-specific orientation. The use of certain vehicles,
especially those without rollover protection, is also regulated on the project. Safety awards and incentives form an integral part of our corporate approach to safety consciousness. Our goal is to work incident-free. We want to continually improve our health and safety performance. Through our Safety Incentive Awards program, we will recognize those individuals who demonstrate safe work practices, who identify and stop potentially at-risk or unsafe behaviors, and those who take steps to correct the condition and who offer improvement recommendations. Our awards program brings our new Employee Safety Charter to life, using the new charter principles as the foundation. 1. I will personally participate in improving our safety performance on EllisDon sites. 2. We will work together to find new ideas and innovations for safety strategies. 3. Everyone is responsible for transferring safety knowledge and experience to the next generation and to families and local communities. How does our program work? We're providing Safety Champion observation cards to each project for field-based personnel to document what they've found, whether it is 1. Positive performance, 2. Near-miss at-risk activity or unsafe condition, 3. Opportunity to improve safety. We're also expecting that if personnel identify potential near-miss at-risk behaviors or unsafe conditions, they immediately contact their supervisor. Supervisors will ensure all necessary corrective actions are taken. The cards should be submitted into the collection box. They will be reviewed by the project management team, Site Safety Coordinator, and JHSC, and will become an entry ballot into the Project Safety Awards draw, with the best submissions selected.
Remember, on an EllisDon project, your safety is our top priority. But you have to do your part each and every day. Accidents can happen to you regardless of your age or experience. Take safety seriously. Be vigilant at all times. Together, we can produce an accident-free workplace. And we will all go home safely every night. Nothing matters more.